Hi, welcome to my class in mathematics modeling and simulation. And today we're going to learn the first model called the aged structure population model. The mathematics tool we're going to use is called the Leslie matrix. This model was first developed by Patrick and Leslie in 1945. This particular education module was adapted from two professors, Angela Shiflett and George Shiflett in Wofford College. Let's see what is the Leslie matrix and how do we investigate this population model. Whenever you think about a math model, you can think as a black box first and pay attention to the input and the output. Well, in that particular model, we have two input parameters. The first one is the birth rate and the death rate of that particular species. The second input parameter will be the initial population. Once we know these two parameters, we can find the population distribution over time, and we can answer a whole list of questions if you're concerned. So let's start right to the example. Well, in this example, first, let's just pay attention what are the two input parameters. We assume there's a certain bird has a maximum lifespan of 3 years. And to make the model simple, we only consider the female population. And we assume the birth rate for the first year to the second year bird will raise 10x. And for the birds in the second to the third year, it will lay 8x on average. And then we suppose 15% of young birds from age 0 to 1 will survive and live on to the second year of life. And 50% of the birds will, from the second year, will live on to the third year of the life. That's the last stage of the life. So maybe you cannot remember all the detail of the facts, but we can at least think this is a simple conceptual model. We have the birds have 3 years of span. We call the first period for the first year from age 0 to 1, the second year from 1 to 2, and the last year from 2 to 3. Besides this, we need to remember the two sets of parameters. Well, we call this as a transition rate. And the one transition is due to the natural age progress. Let me write it down. Age progress. Just like if you passed your birthday and then you add your age by 1 year. So we do the same to the birds. If past the first breeding season, in the next breeding season come, they add 1 year. That's the transition. We call it P1. Change the birth age from 1 year to the second year. And the P2, change the age from second year to the third year. This will be related with the mortality or surviving rate. There's another set of transition. We have newborn eggs and the young birds. So start from the second year, the birds can lay eggs. We use the F. The F stands for fecundity. That means birth rate. Well, the third year, the birds also lay eggs, but the transition is go all the way to the young birds, the first year life. So now you see the relationship. We have 3 states. We call this as states. And we have 4 transitions. This P1, P2, F1, F2, we call it transitions. Well, since we have not attached any number yet, so this model only gives you the qualitative relationship. So I call it conceptual model. And at least you can see the birth rate F1, F2, F3 will increase the population of the first year birds. Because the survival rate is not high, you can at least know the population of the second year and the third year will be much smaller than the population the first year. So qualitatively, we understand this relationship. And now we can go to a little more detail. So what is a transition? A transition is usually connected to 2 states. After the time comes to the breeding season, you trick the transition in the same way like you pass your birthday and the last year, let's say I'm 25, I hope so. And then this year, after the birthday, I get 26. So my age changed. That's why it's called transition. So, and also tell you why this is called the age-structured population model. So the age transition from 1 to 2, when the new breeding season comes, and from 2 to 3. That's the transition. And the natural transition, of course, we use P, stand for progress. Another transition you see from this backward, and we use the arrow to tell the direction of the transition. So the tail is here, and it's heading to the neutral state. We're going to explain a little more later on. But let's go to the quantitative model. Then we need the numbers, not just the relationship. Well, all we need is refill all those numbers of the transition. Again, we have 3 states. let's call this as the first year, second year, and the third year. The states relatively stay in a longer time, have a duration. For example, this is span a whole year. But transitions happened instantaneously. It does not consume time. And we know the survival rate of the first year births to the second year is only 0.15 if we check back to our model. See, is that a 15? And transition from the second year to the third year will be 50%. So we just write down this P2 as 0.5. In other words, 50% birds perished in that period. And the other two, we have to be a little more careful. Because our population only focuses on the female birds, only the female birds lay eggs. So we make the assumption 50% of our eggs are females. So among the 10 eggs of the second year birds laid, you only have 5 are female. That's why F2 equals 5. And among the 8 eggs, we only get 4, half of it, be female eggs. That's what matters. All right, now you see a new state diagram. And this diagram not only gives you the relationship, but gives you the quantitative detail. And at this stage, we can say, hey, we understand the question now. And what's next? Well, next, we're going to write this into algebra and then do the computation. If I give you the population of the first year birds, second year birds, third year birds, then you can calculate the population of the birds for the next year, you know, keep going. That's our next concern. So before I move on, I know this is new to you. Let me briefly summarize what we have. For any state diagram, you have states. We have 3 states. And we are going to call it x1, x2, x3. Let me put it that way. But remember, those are not constants because they change over time. So this really is a function of time t. And the invisible variable is always there when the time progresses. And we have 4 transitions. That's a constant over years. P1, P2 are the age progressing transition. And F2, F3 stand for the birth rate, and F is the word for quantity, means birth rate. So like all population model, the critical attributes are the quantity and the mortality. Mortality in here is 0.85, here is 0.50. That's what we have so far.